Hey everybody, my name is Evan. I'm with Solve.cloud. We help companies automate their businesses using Salesforce and AI. So a little bit of background here. Solve.cloud, we started as a Salesforce consultancy, and then as AI has burst into the scene unexpectedly and very quickly become a very powerful tool, we've branched into AI as well. And so the goal is very soon in the future, business is going to become more and more automated. I think we're starting to see it. Everybody's used ChatGPT and knows how powerful AI is at this point, but it's still got a long way to go. We're starting to see more and more AI become part of and then kind of change the way that we do business. So what's coming in the future is certainly a more automated way of doing business, and but it's not going to happen overnight. There's a number of change management problems that will have to be solved for every organization to kind of adapt to and to start taking full advantage of AI. There's a lot of opportunities to take advantage of in that process. Certainly automating earlier and first can give you a competitive edge and enable you to do things you hadn't done before, serve your customers even better, and certainly become more efficient. There's also some risks. There's a lot of things that implementing it wrong or spending too much money on a large implementation only for that to become obsolete by new advances in the technology. So anyways, lots of cool opportunities, lots of risks. We've had a chance to interview a lot of our clients. So a tiny bit of background and we'll dive in. Solve.cloud started as a Salesforce consultancy, helping our clients implement Salesforce. So now that AI is the powerful tool it is, we've kind of branched out into helping people use that as well. So in the process of doing that, we've got lots of clients that we've worked with, have great relationships with, that we've had a chance to interview and ask them in the change management process of adopting AI, going from a business that was run with no AI to now onboarding those tools and training people, what are the hardest parts about that? And that's where we hope we can add as much value as possible. So they've given us a number of questions. We've kind of aggregated those questions, and the purpose of this webinar series is to address those sort of one by one. So without further ado, we'll jump in. The number one question that we get for sure is, how can my company use AI safely? So a lot of risks with using AI, and there's a lot of, I feel like there's new risks that are discovered all the time. And so people are naturally apprehensive. Is my data going to leak? I have proprietary data. Is that going to be safe? And then AI sometimes gets things wrong. Can I really trust it? A lot of companies have chosen just to create like a blanket policy that AI is not allowed or not to be used. Today, we're going to go through how you can use it and enable your people to use it, and then also protect your data, and then make sure that people aren't taking their hands off the wheel, that even though AI is not perfect yet, you can still use it and be effective and get great results. So kind of want to break down the three main common concerns that we get. People ask, is the AI going to learn or remember the conversations that me or my employees are having with it? If you have, the primary concern here is data leakage. If you're having a conversation about new product updates, or maybe you mention some of your customers or products or something that's proprietary and should stay internal to an AI, is that somehow going to get into the AI's brain where it could then share that with somebody else that's chatting with it? So let's dive into that one. Well, I guess before just jumping right in there, the other couple concerns we'll hit today is, if you do have proprietary data that just can't leave your organization, how do you still use AI without ever that data ever leaving your organization? And then the third one is AI hallucination. So AI has this habit of being confidently incorrect at times. How do you use it in a way that's not going to cause problems? So jumping into, will the AI learn and remember what I tell it? So the primary way this works, and this is very high level, so not getting too detailed here. When AI models are created, you may have heard the term trained. It starts with a ton of data, and it's when we're talking about AI like ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, these are large language models. So all of this training data is like text data here, and just tons and tons of it that then is fed to a neural net, and that neural net, as the data as it's being trained on that data, it's learning how words fit together, the relationships that words have to each other. And then as you train it on more and more data, it starts to learn, okay, this is kind of how the world works. I can learn from knowing how people talk about things, actually store the information about how those things that they're talking about really work. And then that can be reproduced, and the model essentially is you ask it a question or have some text that you feed it, and then it's going to output its prediction on what the right thing is to say. And it's going to do that one word at a time. It's going to say, what's the next right word? All right, great. And what's the next right word after that? And then it's kind of going through this looping process of just predicting the next word until you have what looks like an answer. So anybody that's used ChatGPT, it feels very much like you're just chatting with somebody or texting someone that knows a whole lot about most things, but sometimes just lies about it. If it doesn't know for sure, just makes something up. And then, so anyways, your users are then going to use typically some kind of a chat interface to talk to these AI models. So the real concern here is when my users, or when I am like chatting with an AI, are my chats getting fed into the training data, where now the training data that trained the AI is getting updated with all the stuff we ever talked about? Is that possible? So the answer is yes. Especially in the early days of ChatGPT, they would keep the chat transcripts, and then have that data, and they own that data. And then the terms and conditions, it says, hey, we can use these chats as further data that we can then feed into our AI models. So that's obviously not good, especially if you're talking about things that shouldn't be shared outside of your organization. If you had one chat with an AI where it remembered those chats and that got into a training data set, and then that company trained a new model on it, if you had one conversation, is it going to like perfectly remember that information? Probably not. But it's theoretically possible that a model could be trained in the future that would have better recall and be able to remember every single thing it was ever trained on. And then, yeah, theoretically, you could ask it, hey, what's that detail that so-and-so over here at this company disclosed? And then it would just tell you. So you don't want that. That's kind of the primary concern. Well, there's several things that can be done about this. Number one is choose your AI provider carefully. So now, speaking of ChatGPT, there is a setting in ChatGPT. If you open the settings, there's like a little toggle that says make the model better for everyone. And if that is on, they're retaining your chats and pulling them into their training data set to use on later models. If you toggle that off, though, your training data, they still retain a copy of the chats so that you can see like your chat history, and that they can monitor it for, like safety reasons or quality assurance. But they only keep it for, I think, 3 months, last I checked. And then they promise, basically, as long as that toggle is toggled off, they promise not to keep that for future training data. A couple that I know kind of off the top of my head is Anthropic by default doesn't train on user chats. So if you're using Anthropic's models like Claude, it's not something you have to worry about. Gemini models, they do keep chats unless you're on like a paid plan. It's pretty safe to say at this point, you do want to always, check terms and conditions or check the privacy policies of whoever your AI provider is. And that's the important question to answer is, are you going to use my chats or my users' chats to train future models? You want to make sure that is off. But yeah, Anthropic by default doesn't train. Gemini by default does. But also, it's safe to say if you have a paid plan through any of the AI providers, very likely they're not going to train on your data. And then if you're using them through the API applications that you've built or third-party applications that use that AI through some sort of an API, odds are your data is not being retained and trained on. So kind of to recap this one, best way to use AI chatbots without make sure that your training data isn't leaked or used to train future models is just to upgrade to a paid plan, the Plus plan or the Teams plan or the Enterprise plan of these various providers. So not only is that going to keep your chats private, but also there's a lot of tools and cool user interface things that these companies are creating that we won't go into detail today. There's more and more reasons to have those paid plans so you can have it, help you write code or have some of the voice features where it feels more like a voice conversation, that kind of thing. Those are often features that are on the paid tiers. So what else can you do? This one is even safer than the other one. Like I said, these providers typically do retain your chats for quality assurance or whatever. It exists on their servers. The question is it going to make it into the training data set? If you set up a private implementation, you can still use AI without your data ever really leaving your organization. So if you have, there's a couple of providers, and it just kind of depends. Are you a Microsoft shop or Google? Do you have AWS infrastructure internally? Whoever your cloud provider is, or if you're like an on-prem shop, if you have your own servers, you can actually, there's a lot of open source AI models. So Llama is a good example of open source. China's DeepSeek R1 is also an open source model that you can get. It's a really smart one. It's gotten a lot of press recently. If you use it through DeepSeek, 100% that data is getting retained and used for training data. But if you download the model weights and then run them on through your cloud provider or on like an on-premise server, there's a way to set it up where you can use it without the data ever leaving to go to another organization. You can kind of keep the whole feedback loop internal. So this is by far the safest way to go, is just to set it up, have an open source model, and then set it up to be used internally. So a couple of services here that can be used for this is Amazon's Bedrock service, and then Google Cloud has an equivalent, so does Microsoft, where you can spin these up to run internally. So anyways, if you want more details about that, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to help you set up a private implementation or point you in the right direction. All right, so one more that we'll talk about here is using an AI gateway. So there are services, and I've got Salesforce on here because they're one of them, that can give you access to external AI models like OpenAI's models, the ChatGPT models, but introduce some safety measures above and beyond what they offer out of the box. So specifically, when I'm talking about Salesforce and Agentforce, there's something called the Einstein Trust Layer here. And what that does is your users, maybe they ask a question or something. Let's just use the chat example for now. We'll keep the Salesforce's AI agents out of it for purposes of this conversation. If your users ask a question of AI through Salesforce, it's going to go through the trust layer, meaning any data from Salesforce that they're using or that they're directly typing is going to be scrubbed and sanitized. So essentially, like if they use customer names or account names or something like that, it's going to get masked so that the names get scrambled, turned into just gibberish, and then the AI model can answer. And then on the way back, those names are going to be unscrambled to be, what they were before. So essentially, the AI model through the API never even gets the actual names being used. So there's an extra layer of safety there. Also, Salesforce has an agreement with AI providers like OpenAI that OpenAI is not going to retain any data sent through Salesforce. So they're not even going to keep it for quality assurance or anything. It's going to go straight to the AI model, It's going to generate a response, and then it's like, according to OpenAI and the data that they've retained, it's like it never came through. Another thing with the Einstein trust layer is on the way back in, there's going to be a toxicity score that's assigned to the output, so that you can kind of monitor and make sure that the AI is not coming back with responses that are inappropriate or toxic in any way. So anyways, a couple of super cool features that you can use through these AI gateways, such as Salesforce's Einstein trust layer. So anyways, just adds another layer of security. And then as well, all of that happens within Salesforce, which is a system your users are already using. It comes with the added benefit then that instead of having to, maybe you do want information about a certain customer that you have. You want to, maybe it's a salesperson and they want to understand more about what's the industry, how might I position our products best. When you use AI through Salesforce, all the data that you have about the customer and about your products and how your products can serve the customer can live in Salesforce, and the AI can have access to that as well. So instead of having to type, hey, I want information about this customer, this is the kind of information I want, these are the products that I provide, this is what they do, typing all this information to give to the AI, your users could say something like, hey, tell me more about this company, or how could I position our products to help this company? And then through Agentforce and some other features within Salesforce, the AI, before that all gets sent off to the AI for processing, Salesforce can pull in the relevant data to send along with your user's question, so they don't have to do all that typing. And so anyways, it can make it really fast to get information and use the information you already have in your data. It feels at that point more like AI is part of your organization and knows about your organization and has access to your data to help out without any of that actually being retained or any of the AI actually running within your organization. So it's pretty cool. Some of the benefits that come there, and also, you can have peace of mind using it that way. All right, moving on to, if you have proprietary data that simply can't be shared with third parties, I'm not gonna, rehash. This one is the exact same as what we talked about before. Number one recommendation here would be use a private implementation. So just because, maybe you have to be HIPAA compliant or, compliant with other regulations within your industry, best bet is to set up a private implementation. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to use AI, and you absolutely can do it safely, and even own your own version of a model. Maybe you start with a llama model trained by Meta, but you download the model weights, you run it on your own servers. You can even do fine-tuning and additional training on that model so that it understands your business or some of that data that you own. Again, you kind of at that point have your own personal version of the AI, that where none of your users' interactions with that are going to leave the platform. So we can go way down a rabbit hole, maybe on a future webinar, of different things that you can do with a private implementation to make it really useful to users, where you might be able to control what data should these users, version of the AI, have access to versus these users, where you can get granular with the permissions and say, if this user asks a question, the AI shouldn't know this other stuff that user shouldn't know. But depending on who it is asking the question, you're going to get different data that the model has access to. So anyways, again, that's a whole rabbit hole we can go into, but you can do some pretty cool things and use it very safely without the data leaving your organization. Regulation, unless the regulations that you have to comply with fully prohibit AI use altogether, there's no reason you shouldn't be able to benefit from the things AI can do if you have regulatory obligations. So the other way, and again, you're going to be best at knowing what regulations you need to follow or what rules you need to follow, but there may be instances where the Einstein trust layer and the gateway through Salesforce or other services might be sufficient. So main moral of the story here is just, again, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to use AI. There's often a way to comply with regulations and policies and still get the benefit from it. And in some cases, the Einstein trust layer is going to be sufficient, or other solutions by other providers. So anyway, solutions are out there is all I'm saying. Feel free to take a look at what's out there and figure out what's going to be best for your organization. All right, coming back, the last concern here, AI sometimes gets things wrong. How do I trust it? So anybody that's used ChatGPT, I feel like you don't have to use it for very long before the first time that it tells you something that's just simply not true. Or you can say, hey, who won this sports game in 1988? And it can come back and just have a wrong answer, but it's really confident about it, where you're like, it almost gets to the point where you're like, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose? I'm relying on this thing for information, but if I have to fact check everything it says, maybe I should have just started with Google. What's the point of using the AI in the first place? So there are some pretty cool things that you can do that right now. The important thing to understand is that AI in its current form is non-deterministic, meaning you truly don't know exactly what's going to come out of the AI. It's also, we don't fully have visibility into what even happens within neural net. You have input, and then it's a bit of a black box where we get the right answer out, but we're not exactly sure how it got there. So anyways, there's no way to control or make it so that, that AI hallucination doesn't happen. So it's getting better. Newer models and smarter models are hallucinating less and less, especially the reasoning models like DeepSeek R1 and OpenAI's O1 and O3. But they still hallucinate from time to time. It's just something that's important to know. Main thing to keep in mind here is that you should, at least for now, until it gets perfect, we'll see where it goes. I feel like it's moving so fast. By the time this gets published, there may be a solution to this problem already. But for now, for the foreseeable future, we need to keep humans in the loop. And then even better is keeping data in the loop. So what do I mean by this? More and more, we're seeing AI agents that can take actions on their own. A good example is Salesforce's Agentforce platform. Currently, it can do the work of like an entry-level SDR, or kind of an entry-level customer service rep, where for the customer service example, it can take user cases that are created or emails and then figure out what's the best way to respond to this person. A lot of those questions get asked over and over again. And so it can have some responses and be able to not just spit out. It's not a decision tree where it's like spitting out, if they ask this question, use this answer, but kind of use the information from your organization and the things that they know to answer the question in a conversational way. So it's really cool. But what we don't want to do is fully take our hands off the wheel and let these agents go totally rogue. You want to make sure, especially if they're interacting with your customers, that what they're saying is accurate and true. So that's why, for instance, Salesforce's Agentforce agents have actions built in to say, at a certain point, if a customer is asking questions about this or this, or that the level of complexity of the question gets to a certain point, you want to like kick that case over to a real person, or some monitoring capabilities to allow people to go and review what the agents have been saying to customers. So you want to keep humans in the loop, but you also want to keep data in the loop. So what does that mean? Let's take the customer service AI agent example again. You want those agents to have access to correct information. So if a customer logs a case, the AI agent probably wants to have access to information that you have about that customer, products that they've purchased, cases that they've raised in the past, that kind of thing. And then they'll want to know about your products. They'll want access to your knowledge base so that they can then have accurate things to go say. So you want to get your data in a form that is useful to be used by AI. So whether that's humans chatting with an AI model, where you can kind of do what we talked about before, where it takes information from your data and injects it into the prompt as it's on its way. Or if it's an AI agent, that you want to make sure that the data is in a form where the agent can access it and understand what it needs to do its job. So there's a lot of ways to do this. There's a lot of agent platforms, AI providers that all have various levels of ability to keep humans in the loop, or to give access to your data to AI agents or chatbots. One example, and again, I think I mentioned at the top, we're big fans of Salesforce. They are quite ahead and forward thinking when it comes to especially these AI agents. So to use the Salesforce example, and then know that as we're talking about some of these products, there are similar offerings out there. But just to keep it in one example, we'll keep going down the Salesforce path. So one thing that Salesforce recently started offering is their data cloud platform. This is a CDP, customer data platform, that you can pull in all the data from across your organization. So every platform, if you have an app or a website or something, it can pull data from there. Just get all the data from your organization living in one place. And then it has tools to take that data and then turn it into essentially a form that the AI can use and reference efficiently and well. And so that data now lives on top of Salesforce, which is where both your people and your AI agents are working. So all the components of being able to use AI well for business cases are all living in the same place. So then you have AI agents through Agentforce. You've got all of your organization's data through Data Cloud, and then your people already have been and will continue to work in Salesforce. So that's a good example of a platform that has taken the right things into mind, kind of keeping the right things in mind to make sure that even though AI is not perfect, that it performs very well, and that it can check its assumptions and the things that it says against your data and against your users' input to be as correct as possible, and then make sure that in interactions with your customers or prospects, that humans have access to and can stay in the loop so that your AI is not just running road. It's early days on AI agents. They're still like in their very first form, but it's exciting what they can do already. And absolutely, we're going to see more and more AI agents doing work that people have done. And people will continue to be needed as staying in the loop and making sure the AI is doing the work correctly. But there's huge efficiency gains and automation potential through AI agents, and we're just going to see more and more of that. So anyways, Data Cloud's not the only customer data platform. There's other ones out there that would serve the same purpose as long as you can surface the information to an AI. And then there's lots of agent platforms popping up, N8N, and then more like code heavy platforms like Crew AI and LangChain, those kind of things for creating AI agents. So that's another thing that, shameless plug here. It's another thing that we specialize in, is creating agents both on and off the Salesforce platform and Agentforce. So again, if it's something that you want more information about or could use help standing up, we are more than happy to help. Just feel free to reach out. So that's going to wrap it up. You may have noticed, I keep calling this a webinar, but there's nobody else here. It's just me today. We are hoping to have more and more people attend. If you want to come to the webinar, feel free. So solve.cloud is our website. And then you sign up for future webinars right there on the website. In which case, this Q&A part is going to get a lot more interesting. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. And then if you want to attend future webinars, more than happy to kind of stay on. So this will be what it looks like. Each time we'll kind of end with Q&A. But for now, really appreciate you watching. It helps us out a ton. If you feel like, hey, this was super valuable, I want to help out Solved, then feel free to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then solve.cloud is where you can find more information about us and reach out if you have questions. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day.